The world knew Sharon Osbourne as the fiery judge on The X Factor, the quick-witted matriarch from the Osbournes, and the relentless manager who helped keep heavy metal crown from slipping. For decades, she seemed unbreakable strategist, protector, partner. She stood with Ozzy Osbourne through addiction, infidelity, illness, and reinvention. She endured cancer, scandal, and heartbreak and kept moving. Many believed Ozzy's passing would be the final, cruel chapter in a life already written in fire. But at 72, another storm rose, and this one threatened to drain even the last bright embers from a woman who had defied fate more than once. Sharon, Rachel Osbourne, entered a house where authority boomed louder than affection. Her father, Don Osbourne, was a formidable music impresario, respected, feared, and utterly consumed by business. Home felt more like a back office, contracts on the table, raised voices in the hallway, and little space for tenderness. Then came the blow that never quite stopped echoing. At 6, Sharon's mother died in a car crash. Arguments fell silent. The house felt colder, bigger, emptier. Years later, she would say that no amount of power or money could replace what a child truly needs: safety, gentleness, the freedom to be soft. She learned early that survival demanded composure. Watching artists and executives orbit her father, she read rooms, kept her chin up, and memorized how power really worked. As a teenager in the late 1960s, loneliness became her second skin, and clashes with her father were inevitable. They would go years without speaking, but the furnace of that childhood produced steel. The scars never left, but they gave her an unflinching clarity. Love is fragile, power is ruthless, and comfort can vanish in a heartbeat. At 27, raised inside a dynasty, yet unwilling to be defined by it, Sharon met a man the industry had already dismissed. John Michael Ozzy Osbourne, 31, newly out of Black Sabbath, unsteady from addiction and exhaustion, was being laughed off as yesterday's story. Where others saw a wreck, she saw a wounded giant, and she recognized pieces of her own battle in him. Choosing Ozzy was not just business. It was a decision that split her life in two. Her father called it betrayal. She called it love. Choosing Ozzy meant losing my family. She would later admit she was cut off, inheritance gone, safety net removed. But she'd made her choice, and she never looked back. Money was scarce. Reputation was in tatters. Some nights she sat in anonymous hotel rooms staring at unpaid bills, praying he would survive long enough to get on stage. Still, she rebuilt show by show, call by call, contract by contract, betting her future on a man the world said was finished. Sharon and Ozzy married in 1982, but marriage was never going. To make life simple, she became wife, manager, nurse, shield, and strategist all at once, raising a family while crafting the blueprint for one of rock's great resurrections. Albums like Blizzard of Oz, Diary of a Madman, and Bark at the Moon weren't accidents. They were the product of her tenacity in boardrooms, on phones, and behind the curtain. She handled labels, built tours, and kept the train on the rails while Ozzy wrestled his demons. The title Prince of Darkness was branding, yes, but it was also a story of survival she refused to let end in disgrace. The cost was immense. After Encore came ambulances. After roaring crowds came quiet rooms where she counted pills and measured out hope. She celebrated the wins, fielded the ridicule, and slogged through the bills. People saw pyrotechnics. She saw therapy schedules and IV drips. And yet, by the end of the 1990s, Ozzy wasn't just surviving. He was legendary again. In 1996, she built Ozzfest, a juggernaut that offered a stage to artists others ignored. Ruthless, maybe. Brilliant, absolutely. Mostly, it was proof that a woman could hold up an empire and a family at the same time. When the Osbournes hit in 2002, it became a cultural earthquake. For viewers, it was hilarious chaos. For Sharon, it was a double-edged sword. Opening the front door to the world brought fame and stripped away privacy. Arguments became episodes. Tenderness became content. The laughs were real, but so were the scars. Television loved her candor. Soon she joined judging panels on the X Factor UK and America's Got Talent. She wrote a best-selling memoir. Then came daytime and a long run on The Talk. The same honesty that made her beloved also made her a lightning rod. In 2021, at 68, a heated on-air exchange ignited a storm. Overnight, she went from trusted matriarch to public villain. Contracts evaporated. Threats piled up. "I thought my life was over," she said later, voice unsteady. But she refused to live, defined by shame. She walked away with her head up and said simply, "You either live in shame or you live in truth." I chose truth. In 2002, at 50, she heard the words, "No one wants colon cancer." Chemotherapy hollowed her out. Hair on the pillow, bones aching, breath thin. But she still showed up, still cracked jokes, still filmed. The public saw a sparkle. Her family saw a woman praying not to leave her children motherless like she had been. Then December 2003 hit like a hammer. Ozzy's near-fatal ATV crash left him broken and bruised. Sharon, frail from chemo, planted herself at his bedside. "You're not leaving me," she whispered. At the same time, the family was fracturing under addiction. Jack spiraling, Kelly struggling. Sharon made the late-night calls to rehab centers. With a voice that could barely rise above a whisper. The show delivered ratings real life demanded. A warrior, because of her genetic risk, doctors warned that cancer could return. In 2012, at 60, Sharon chose a preventive double mastectomy. "I didn't do it to look different," she said. "I did it to stay alive. The operation was brutal, recovery slow." She was honest about cosmetic decisions she regretted and frank about the toll medications took, weight falling off, face unfamiliar. Tabloids turned her body into sport. Sharon turned it into testimony. Scars are not shame, they are proof. The deepest cut didn't come from disease, it came from betrayal. In 2016, Sharon learned of Ozzy's infidelity. She walked out. For the first time in decades, she allowed the world to see her broken. The separation was brief, but suffocating. Ozzy confessed, horrified at what he'd risked. Staying wasn't weakness, she insisted. Walking back into the fire with conditions and truth required more courage than running. Therapy began. With time, they rebuilt, scarred but standing. There was a night that frightened them both. A night when illness, addiction, and rage nearly tipped into tragedy. Sirens painted the walls red and blue, and the distance from love to danger became terrifyingly thin. "That night broke me," she said. "It also forced a line in the sand. Seek help, name the darkness, break the cycle. Only then could there be a future." In 2019, a fall at home began a relentless medical march. Surgeries followed. Metal braced what music had once animated. The man who bounded across stages could barely cross a room. "These past 4 years have been nothing but hell," Ozzy admitted. If he could do it again, he wouldn't choose the operations. His body felt like a traitor. Sharon learned the rhythm of monitors, the language of painkillers, the choreography of lifting him into bed when his legs failed. "Nothing prepared me for this," she said. "Not scandal, not betrayal, not even cancer. They could no longer hide it." In January 2020, Ozzy told the world Parkinson's disease. His hands trembled, his voice faltered. Sharon sat beside him, back straight, fingers laced through his. "He's not finished," she insisted. Then came the pandemic. They both caught CO-19 and nights stretched long as she counted his breaths. "I wasn't afraid of dying," she said. "I was afraid of leaving him alone." By 2025, time would not return what it had taken. What Sharon could give was a farewell done right. On July 5, 2025, in Birmingham, the city where it all began, Ozzy took the stage for one final time. Sharon arranged doctors, security, and absolute silence around the plan. It wasn't a show. It was a rite. He stepped out, frail in frame, but crowned in defiance, and sang. The voice cracked and burned. Every note was a reckoning. In the wings, Sharon clasped her hands until her knuckles blanched. "Just let him finish," she breathed. When the last chord fell, the crowd roared, not only for the performance, but for the man and for the woman who had made it possible. It felt like a coronation and a funeral all at once. The end did not scream. It sighed. In the early hours of July 22nd, 2025, Ozzy's breathing slowed. Sharon never let go of his hand. "You roared to the end, my love," she whispered. He opened his eyes once more, heavy with gratitude and surrender. And then the room fell into a silence she would later call unbearable. Doctors reached for the switches. She pressed her forehead to his. "I will carry you." The funeral felt like a crown set down in reverse. Candles lined streets. Black shirts bore his face. Inside the church, music floated like a requiem. Jack and Kelly clung to each other. Sharon stood with one palm on the coffin, lips shaping a goodbye only he would understand. Outside, a final chant rose, "Oi, oi!" and it sounded like thunder. "He wanted to leave with noise," she said through tears. And he did. When the crowd dispersed, she stayed. No crisis left to manage, no schedule to keep, just flowers, photographs, a guitar by the casket, and the loneliest moment of her life. Since Ozzy's passing, Sharon has moved carefully through the days. Friends say she's thinner, quieter. Nights are hardest. The empty side of the bed is a canyon. She remains mostly in Buckinghamshire, where the garden still carries his laughter. Jack, Kelly, and Amy bring the grandchildren, and on weekends she insists on family dinner.